I saved an Apache beauty, and she wouldn't let me leave. The desert didn't wake up gently. Before the sun showed its face, the land was already alive, wind dragging across sand, distant hills holding their breath, silence thick enough to feel heavy on the skin. Somewhere on the edge of that vast emptiness stood a small, weather-beaten cabin forgotten by maps and people alike. Inside it, a man prepared for another day. There was nothing remarkable about his morning. Boots pulled on without thought, a fire lit without ceremony, coffee boiled until it turned bitter. Life had long ago stopped offering variety, and he had stopped asking for it. He worked as a guide through dangerous land, not because he loved it, but because it kept him moving. And movement, he had learned, was the only thing that kept certain memories from catching up. By the time the sun climbed higher, he was already riding. The supply group behind him was small, nervous, city. Men pretending not to be afraid of open. Land that had swallowed better men than them. He didn't bother with conversation. His job was to get them through alive, nothing more. The valley ahead narrowed sharply. Tall ridges pressed in from both sides, shadows cutting the path into pieces. He didn't like this stretch. Never had. The air changed. No wind, no sound. He slowed his horse. That was when the first shot echoed. The desert exploded into violence. Gunfire cracked against stone. Horses screamed. Men shouted names that would never be answered. Dust filled the air so thick it burned the lungs. He reacted on instinct, aiming, firing, moving. Years of experience guiding his body faster than thought. And then just as suddenly it was over. Silence rushed back in heavier than before. Bodies lay scattered across the sand, twisted and still. The attackers were gone, vanishing into the land as if they had never been there at all. He dismounted carefully, scanning the ridges. Only when he was sure the danger had passed did he begin checking for survivors. Most were already gone. Then he saw her. She lay a few yards away, half covered by sand kicked up during the fight. Dark hair spread across her face. Her chest moved, slow, shallow, but unmistakably alive. Blood marked her temple, drying under the rising sun. She wasn't part of the group. Her clothes were worn and torn, clearly not from the caravan. Her skin bore the signs of long travel, of someone who belonged to the land rather than passed through it. Apache. He paused. Helping her meant stepping into something complicated, something dangerous. History alone made that clear. Walking away would be easier, safer. But as he knelt beside her, her fingers twitched, grasping at nothing, refusing to let go of life. That was enough. He lifted her carefully, surprised by how little she weighed, by how fragile strength could look when it was pushed to its limits. "I've got you," he murmured, more promise than statement. She didn't answer. The ride back was hard and fast. The sun bled red across the horizon as if the land itself remembered what had happened in that valley. He didn't stop until darkness forced him to. That night, a small fire burned against the cold. He cleaned her wounds with practiced hands, wrapped her head, gave her water when she stirred. She never fully woke, but she fought, breathing, shifting, refusing to slip away. He stayed awake the entire night, not because he was afraid she'd die, but because something about leaving her alone felt wrong. Just before dawn, as the sky began to pale, her eyes opened. Sharp, alert, instantly aware. She tried to move. "You're safe," he said quietly, holding her shoulders. Her hand found the revolver beside her with startling speed. The barrel lifted, shaking slightly, aimed directly at his chest. He didn't reach for his weapon. He didn't step back. He simply met her gaze and waited. The gun stayed trained on my chest for a long second, maybe two. Long enough for me to feel the weight of every choice that had brought me here. The desert was quiet again, holding its breath. Her hand trembled, but her eyes didn't. Slowly, deliberately, I raised both hands and eased the revolver away with 2 fingers. She let me. That alone told me how close she was to the edge between strength and exhaustion. "You could have walked away," she said. Her voice low, rough from thirst and pain. "I could have," I answered. "But I didn't." She studied my face as if looking for something hidden. Whatever she was searching for, she seemed to find it. At last, she lowered the gun and leaned back against the blanket. Breath shallow but steady. Her name was Ayana. She told me in pieces, between sips of water and long silences. Her people had been moving camp when they were attacked. She fought, she ran. She remembered falling and then waking, to firelight and a stranger who hadn't left her to die. The sun climbed higher as she rested. By afternoon, she could sit up. By evening, she could stand, though the effort left her pale and angry at her own weakness. "I will leave tomorrow," she said flatly. "You can't," I replied. "Not yet." Her eyes flashed. "I don't need your permission." "No," I said, calm. "You need time." She hated that answer. But she stayed. The days that followed weren't peaceful, but they were honest. She healed slowly, stubbornly. I hunted. She watched, learning my patterns. I cooked poorly. She laughed at that, the sound sudden and sharp like breaking ice. At night we shared the fire. Sometimes we spoke. Sometimes we didn't. Silence, I found, could mean many things. With her, it didn't feel empty. One evening, as the sky burned deep orange, she asked, "Why are you here?" "Alone." I shrugged. "Work." "That's not an answer," she said. I stared into the fire. For a long moment, I considered lying. Then I didn't. "I lost someone," I said. After that, staying alone felt easier. She nodded as if she understood more than I'd said. "You carry death like an old companion," she said softly. "But you are still breathing." The word struck deeper than she knew. Days turned into a rhythm. We walked the land together. She showed me plants I'd passed 100 times without noticing. I showed her the safest routes through the valley. Laughter came easier. So did trust. One morning I packed my gear. "I need to go north," I told her. "Supplies are due. People will be waiting." She stood between me and my horse. "No," she said. I sighed. "Ayana." "You saved me," she interrupted. "You stayed when leaving would have been simpler. Now you want to disappear again. This is my life." She shook her head. "No. This is what you do so you don't have to feel." The truth hurt more than any bullet. "I am not asking you to stay forever," she continued. "I am asking you to stop running." Silence fell between us. That night a storm rolled in. Thunder cracked the sky open. Rain turned dust into mud. We sat close to the fire, shoulders nearly touching. When the wind howled, she reached for my hand. I didn't pull away. In that moment, I understood something I'd been avoiding since the day I found her in the sand. Saving her hadn't been about heroism. It had been about recognition. Two wounded souls refusing to lie down and disappear. At dawn, I made my choice. I stayed. Weeks passed. Her strength returned fully. Mine did too, in ways I hadn't expected. The weight in my chest eased. The nights grew quieter, not empty, just still. Eventually, she told me she needed to return to her people. "I will go with you," I said. She smiled, not surprised. "I hoped you would." We traveled together through land that no longer felt hostile. When we reached the edge of her territory, she stopped. "You don't belong to the past you're carrying," she said. "But neither do you belong nowhere." I understood then that healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing to live anyway. When I turned back, it wasn't alone. I carried purpose, connection, hope. Because sometimes, the person you save in the desert isn't the one bleeding in the sand. Sometimes it's the man who thought he was already lost. And sometimes, the one who won't let you leave is the reason you finally learn how to stay alive.